Today's an exciting day because the embargo has officially lifted on the new Sennheiser HDB 630. It's kind of a mouthful to say, but it basically is a higher end, newer version of the Momentum 4, which is a Bluetooth wireless headphone from Sennheiser with active noise cancellation and quite a few other features. In addition to the improved sound quality, there are a couple new feature enhancements that are worth talking about as well. One of them is the inclusion of the BTD700, which is a USB-C transmitter, and that allows you to take advantage of aptX, lossless, and adaptive on a USB port. So if your computer doesn't have the best Bluetooth adapter built in, or you just use Windows and you can't stand the Bluetooth implementation of it, this dongle makes it very simple and easy to use. Because it's a wireless transmitter, I had to do my infamous toilet test, and no, I didn't drop the transmitter in the toilet. I actually plugged it in and walked around my house to see how far it can go. And I'm pleased to say I got over 50 feet consistently with this adapter, and that's going through a couple walls, and there was a wireless access point between me and the transmitter, so pretty good performance there. The other huge feature enhancement with this is like the game changer type thing, and what a lot of people are excited about is the inclusion of Parametric EQ. This is huge because Sennheiser does make good sounding products, but giving you the keys to the kingdom and allowing you to custom tune it to your personal preference is absolutely massive. Typically with a lot of headphones, you get either no EQ adjustment or basic adjustments like bass, mids, and treble, or just bass and treble, or sometimes these odd settings where it's like different presets like classic and hi-fi, etc. So it varies a lot by product. But Parametric EQ is incredibly powerful. All you have to do is open the app, and once you're connected to the headphone, you have the ability to choose through several presets, and even some of them enable bass boost if you somehow want more bass, because this has gobs of it. Or when you go into custom, you can really dial it in. Now you can go through a sound test to basically fine tune it based off some automated stuff, or you can do the 10-band equalizer, or really go for it and go for the Parametric EQ. Parametric EQ isn't for the faint of heart. If you don't know what the numbers mean, I have a video that kind of explains how Parametric EQ works, and it loosely translates to this as well. Basically, you have the ability to adjust plus or minus 6 decibels. You can do up to 5 points of Parametric EQ. So not a full 10-band Parametric EQ, but 5 bands is quite good here because it sounds so good out of the box. You don't necessarily have to adjust as much. You can always stack these points. So if you want band 1 and band 2 to focus on bass, and you set it for, let's just say 60 and 65 hertz with a wide Q, well, yeah, you can lift the bass quite a bit. Naturally, you can change the Q factor, which is the biggest advantage of Parametric EQ, in addition to choosing your frequency, because now you can choose how widely or narrowly you adjust that frequency you're targeting. They also make it very easy to confirm what your changes are. Basically, you can press and hold to bypass your Parametric EQ. This is an important thing to call out though. When you do a lot of Parametric EQ and you're boosting a lot of frequencies, it's going to automatically reduce your preamp. So they do this to reduce distortion, because if you over boost everything on a digital signal, you're going to start having signal clipping, and you introduce a lot of fake distortion on the signal side, not the drivers themselves. So if you play at a low volume, it can still sound distorted. Thankfully, Sennheiser takes that guesswork out by automatically reducing your preamp gain, but as a result, if you go too aggressive on these peaks, keep in mind you are going to lose your overall peak volume. And if this reduces to, let's say, minus 8 decibels on the preamp, it may not get as loud as you'd expect. So just keep that in mind. Thankfully, Sennheiser also allows you to manually adjust the preamp to a safe level. If you're boosting a lot of frequencies, you can't bring the preamp all the way to 0, but at least you can bring some of that back and kind of work in that little gray area of what's acceptable for distortion. Another super cool trick with this is that whole tap to bypass the EQ, so you can compare your EQ profile to the stock sound profile. It matches the preamp gain. There are a lot of products out there that allow you to enable or disable Parametric EQ. The problem is when you enable Parametric EQ, usually you also enable that negative preamp so you don't have distortion issues. By changing the volume from toggling Parametric EQ on and off, it makes it really hard to hear which sound profile you like more, because amplitude can change your perception of sound and frequency response. So this is a really nifty feature, because when you toggle it on and off by doing that press and hold, you're still keeping the preamp volume at the same setting, making it really easy to compare. The tricks don't stop there, because they also added crossfeed, which is what's used on the legendary HE1, and there's a lot of other products implementing crossfeed now as well, but this is nice to see on a Bluetooth headphone. It kind of enhances the stereo effect to make it sound more like speakers, but Your mileage is going to vary, and so will your preferences. I typically leave it off, or sometimes I'll play with low, but with high, I lose some of the preciseness that I got on the imaging that I was looking for, and it affected bass response a little bit as well. There's a lot to like from the ergonomics and design, and I wanted to bring out the original Momentum 4 that I purchased. This was sent to me for review, by the way, and it won't affect what I say about it, but I always want to disclose that. So if you have a Momentum 4 or you just want to see the difference, the biggest change with the HDB 630 is the finish. You obviously get a silver yoke versus a black one. The cups are also a little bit thicker on the HDB 630. You can notice that. The headband design is obviously different. On the Momentum 4, you get this textile fabric. I liked the headband on this. I never really had a problem with it. This is an artificial leather, so it can look more premium. But it's more of a personal preference. One thing I do like that they've done, you can see that this is a little bit softer here, but ultimately the headband is pretty consistent in terms of padding, and it kind of bottoms out right about there where I get no padding. On the HDB 630, the padding is a little bit thicker, and there's also just a little bit of a detent right there in the center, and that helps with relieving some pressure, making it more comfortable to wear on the headband side. Now, I did measure slightly less clamp force with the HDB 630 compared to the Momentum 4, and just to show you how this compares, I also wanted to show you the clamp force of the new Bose QC Ultra, the Quiet Comfort Ultra Gen 2, and the Focal Batiste, because I'll be making some comparisons to those headphones in a little bit. Clamp force is great. The weight isn't bad. It's just over 300 grams, so it's kind of in the middle of weight. The Focal Batiste is noticeably heavier, but it's not horrible. It's still under 400 grams, and I use that one a lot for travel. Bose still has the reigning champ specs here in terms of the overall chassis design between a light clamp force and low chassis weight, and that leads me into the ear pads. The pad dimensions are basically the exact same as the Sennheiser Momentum 4, but it is quite different than both the Focal Batiste and the Bose QC Ultras. The QC Ultras have almost the same height and width in terms of pad clearance around your ear, but they're about 5 millimeters deeper towards the back. And this is the same issue I had with the Momentum 4, where just the shape of this pad being the size that they are and the depth that they have, it basically puts just a little bit of pressure behind my ear. If you shrink the headband down a little bit, so it's not like resting down on the top of your ear, I feel comfort improves. Now, this is kind of like what Sony did by making the distance to your ear as short as possible. You typically improve ANC performance, which I'll touch on here in just a moment. But from a comfort standpoint, there's no getting around that my ears are making contact in several places that normally I don't prefer, just because I don't like pressure behind my ear. Thankfully, everything's padded well. The baffle is padded, so that helps a lot too, because this isn't like a hard plastic right here. This makes a bit of a difference on comfort, and this is obviously soft. It is an ear pad, so I think comfort is going to be the biggest question mark depending on your ear shape, but a lot of ANC headphones typically have a more shallow pad depth because they're trying to maximize that performance. You can clearly see the Focal Batiste has monstrous ear pads, which is a part of why they don't have the best active noise cancellation performance, but the ear clearance here is absolutely monstrous, and as a result, if you have larger ears, something like the Batiste is going to be a little bit better for you. As far as some other specs go, battery life is something where Sennheiser has traditionally killed it, and there's no difference here. You get 60 hours of battery life with the ANC enabled, which is absolutely massive because the other headphones typically get anywhere from 24 to 30 hours depending on the setting. Not bad battery life by any means, but having double the battery life is quite big. The other thing worth noting is this charges really fast because you can fully charge it in 2 hours, whereas the other headphones will take 1.5 to 2 hours to get effectively half the battery life. So the charge rate is really good on this as well. Now, because you have so many different connection options with the HDB 630, I wanted to cover a couple very unique behaviors that's worth noting in case you're shopping for this for gaming or other specific applications, mainly with use of the microphone. For one, if you use this on a PlayStation 5, you have 3 different ways you can try using it. You can use the included dongle, which is going to have Bluetooth and wireless connection, which is all nice. However, the default mode when you plug it in goes to basically the hands-free profile mode because it's using the protocol that supports the microphone because it's a gaming headset. This makes the audio sound absolutely terrible, and frankly, it's pretty unusable. There's kind of a trick to address this. Now, if you press the front of the transmitter 4 times in quick succession, it changes the mode of the transmitter, and it did restore the bandwidth I needed to get much better sound quality on my PS5, which was great. However, the microphone won't work in that case. Not the end of the world because you can use the controller, but my latency wasn't the greatest either. So even when I was playing Gran Turismo, my shifts were off sometimes just because that half-second delay was noticeable. It definitely didn't hit the 30 milliseconds I was expecting. I don't know if it's just the way it negotiated with my console, but to me, it wasn't the most usable on the wireless side. Unfortunately, even when I switched to a USB-C cable and plugged it directly into the console, I had the exact same problems. It was stuck in that hands-free profile mode, and even if I disabled the microphone on the headset, so on PlayStation's audio settings, I set it to use the controller's microphone and not this headphone, I still had the same audio issues, only I couldn't even switch it to the other mode. It was stuck in that hands-free mode and it just did not sound good at all. Now I got much better performance initially on PC when I was using the USB-C connection. It supports 24-bit 96 kilohertz. The default was 48 kilohertz, but I switched to 96 and had no issues there. The issue is the second you enable the microphone, so if you join a Discord call, you get into a game that uses chat, you get on a Teams call, it switches to the hands-free profile mode even when you're on a USB-C connection. So it behaves like a normal Bluetooth headphone, even though it's using a USB-C connection. And although it does sound better with a one-way communication, I don't understand why the firmware or why this headphone's behavior is to then switch to basically what a traditional Bluetooth headphone does. It was really weird behavior and there was nothing I can do to circumvent that. Now obviously the transmitter sounded great on Windows. I had no issues with sound quality there, and the aptX adaptive worked really well for me. It balances bandwidth and low enough latency where it's not distracting, and there's some other protocols in there to help with lip sync, but it really depends on what you're playing and using it for. There is additional software that Sennheiser offers to switch this dongle into gaming mode while connected to your computer, and that's how they claim the targeted 30 millisecond latency time. You don't really hear a big difference whether you enable gaming mode or not. It wasn't really perceivable to me. It did always have a little bit of latency, as does Bluetooth, and if I was looking for that level of competitive edge, I wouldn't be using a Bluetooth headphone. A wired solution is going to have the lowest latency, of course, and some products like from Razer SteelSeries, those guys are pushing sub 20 millisecond latency pretty consistently, so it really depends what you're after. Again, just like the USB-C connection, if you're not using the microphone, then this adapter is totally fine, and it can sound great. I had no real problems with it. It's just as soon as you enable the mic, it's basically a different product. So pivoting to the 2.5 connection, which is an analog connection on the right ear cup, I say that because to me this was kind of a miss. I was praying that the new BAM microphone from Sennheiser would have worked, because this is a 2.5 connection. How cool would that have been if I could use it? There's, to me, a missed opportunity here if you're ever using it for gaming, because this is designed to go in the left cup like all of their 5 Series chassis headphones this was originally meant for. So it doesn't lock into place, and the orientation of the mic is the wrong way. So I couldn't use this as an analog gaming headset for console use and then use this for travel later. So that was kind of a letdown. In addition to that, the included cable is a 2.5 millimeter. So obviously this is going to connect on the left cup, on the right cup, I'm sorry. See, that's my habit. Connected to the right cup here, so I'm connected with analog. The other side is a 3.5 millimeter 90-degree plug, and this is going to connect into your controller or anything with an analog headphone output, 3.5 output. You don't need any real power on it because, like I said, this is active, so it doesn't need an external amplifier. This is great from gaming on console, but there's no way to utilize the microphone on this because they didn't do a TRRS connection, which allows you to send the analog or the microphone's input back out this wire. So this will work as an analog active headphone only. At least you can use the built-in microphone on the controller, but it's kind of limited on the gaming side. I got quite a different result with the Bose and Focal headphones. So with Bose on PlayStation, it shows up as just a headphone with no mic support, so you can't enable the mic at all. And this allowed me to use the USB connection or the analog connection and get full high-quality sound without forcing hands-free profiles. So the Bose was the second best gaming headset I could use for console just because of that reason. Now I can benefit from all of that. The Focal Batiste is still the reigning champ here because in addition to supporting USB-C DAC mode and working as a great headphone for that, it also has a 3.5 millimeter connection, and it's on the correct side, allowing you to use something like the V-Moda mic boom, turning your Focal Batiste into a full-fledged gaming headset. Now, naturally, you can kind of take this for what you will on the work from home and conference call side because the same behaviors apply. You can use this for calls. You can use this as a Bluetooth headphone and take calls, and people are going to hear that traditional Bluetooth sound, but just don't expect the higher fidelity stuff that you would have gotten through the analog connection or USB-C. While I have this case out, I wanted to show you the older case from the Momentum 4. The case is improved as well. They actually have a much better liner setup to stuff your cables. I had this just coiled up for ease of displaying everything it came with. There's a little transmitter, and then you even have your airplane adapter. These are the stickers because I didn't even get into the touch controls yet, but we'll cover that here just in a moment. And yeah, so you get a better case experience. Overall, the case dimensions are similar, but it is worth noting that the new HDB 630 is a slightly thicker case, so it's going to take up a little bit more room in your bag. I already mentioned the ear cups are slightly thicker, so I assume it's part of that. Now, Sennheiser used a ton of touch controls on the Momentum 4, and there's no difference here with the HDB 630. In fact, all of the layout and gesture control is basically the same. You have both cups here that do a variety of things, and you basically have just one button here that's going to toggle your power mode and enabling pairing mode if you hold it down for 5 seconds. There are a couple nifty features like double tapping and then expanding and shrinking to change your active noise cancellation performance. So I do love that. And to me, the volume adjustment was super responsive. I expected to have to do this repeatedly. It is much quicker, and I could basically just do a swipe up like that and get a noticeable increase in volume. So as much as I'm not usually a fan of touch controls, I feel like it's been refined here and it worked really well for me.
Just in case you want to hear what my voice sounds like, it's nothing magical here. There's no point in trying to do the USB mode because I get the exact same microphone performance whether I'm wired or using this transmitter or just a Bluetooth connection directly to my phone. I just wanted to show you what the mic sounds like so you can at least get a feel for it.
All right, so I'm going to get into sound quality now, and this part won't actually take as long this time because, one, the sound quality is absurdly good. Like, the tuning on this out of the box is close to perfect, in my opinion. It's not going to be for everybody because not everyone wants the closed back sound, and it will vary a little bit depending on how it sits on your ears and if you have ANC enabled or disabled. If you look at the frequency response on the blue line here, and I'm using a Gross KB006X Pinaclone, you can see a reduction in bass compared to the older Momentum 4, which was notorious for having a ton of bass, but a much better upper mid-range and low treble tuning. This whole area from 1000 hertz to about 5000 hertz is damn near perfect. And honestly, the treble is excellent as well. I really don't have any gripes here because I don't find this to be a bad signature in almost any way unless you just don't want a lot of sub bass. You can easily tame this by changing through the profiles built into the app or taking advantage of the custom parametric EQ here. But the voicing on this is incredible. As far as like active Bluetooth headphones go, this is the best sounding one I've ever heard out of the box. The frequency response shows that, and when I put it on my head, I was like, oh my God, this is good. Now, thankfully, Sennheiser offers a lot of presets to kind of refine that sound profile further. They even have a movie mode to make it more immersive, and just the good thing is they treated us like adults and they offered parametric EQ. So for those who know exactly what kind of sound signature you want, they just gave you the keys to do that. But how they tuned it out of the box is so much better than most, if not all, closed back Bluetooth headphones that I've heard. Even if you didn't know how to do any of that, you're basically good to go. This sound signature does have elevated bass, so I think that boosted bass may not be for everybody, but the general public does like their bass. Thankfully, it's not muddy or overly thick. It's not carrying into the mid so much that voices have a heavier weight to them. And it's enough forwardness in the upper mid-range and low treble where the voices stand up to the bass, no problem. They don't seem like they're taking a back seat, but they're also not jumping ahead of you and sounding overly aggressive or like pinched or nasally or shouty. It sounds very natural. The treble tuning is exceptional as well. It's no surprise there. You can see it on the frequency response. You have a good balance of airiness without being too sharp or abrasive sounding. So I think what Sennheiser's done here is great. And that really covers the sound in a nutshell, just because as good as it is out of the box, you can kind of make it fit what you like even further. So that's a huge win here. So here's where things get interesting. I've already covered the sound quality is exceptional. There's really no way of getting around that. They knocked it out of the park for what you hear. The issue that I have, one of the few issues I have, is the fact that I'm not buying this solely for the sound quality. And as an audiophile, that's obviously kind of an odd thing to say, but if I'm getting a Bluetooth headphone, it's because I'm traveling and I want something portable. They made exceptional improvements here. the active noise cancellation improvements is massive. To me, it's noticeably better. And if anything, they actually bettered some other products that used to be better than them. I still think Bose and I still think Sony have the advantage in pure active noise cancellation performance. But interestingly enough, the ANC on this is quieter than Bose in terms of white noise. So if you max out the ANC performance of the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra Gen 2, there's a little bit of a hiss here, whereas the new HDB 630 is dead silent. So if you don't have a super noisy environment, Sennheiser actually takes the edge here. It shifts if you get on a very loud plane and you're trying to cut that noise out. I think the Quiet Comfort Ultra Gen 2 does a slightly better job, as does the Sony and as does the Apple AirPod Max. Those are kind of like the three kings in the ANC world, but it gets further complicated when you look at a couple of other things here. When I'm traveling, this is going in my backpack, and space is a huge concern. It's why I've often used earbuds instead of a headphone. This is the one thing that I wish Sennheiser would address, or at least give me the option. It's part of it is because of the chassis design. This does not have foldable hinges, and neither does the Focal Batiste. So you can see kind of where that sits in the case itself. There's really no way of getting around that. But when you look at the Bose case, even though this is closer to the camera, making it look even larger, you can see the Sennheiser case around it. You can also see that the Bose case is noticeably thinner. That same thing happens with Sony, although it's not as big of a difference. The Sony's thinner and it has that scalloped shape to it. And the Focal Batiste case, as large as those headphones are, it's actually a slightly smaller case. So from a traveling standpoint, I have a little bit of an issue with the Sennheiser's case when it comes to mobility. The other gotcha is the comfort, and I think the comfort is good. I think the issue is some people will have that sensitivity on the back of the ear, and I can wear these for quite a while, but I definitely feel that a little bit. I prefer the Sennheiser HDB 630 over the Sony. I was kind of vocal about this. The Sony's really only use case here to me is if you just want the best possible ANC. But frankly, the sound quality and the comfort and even the build quality just did not hit the mark for me. I just did not enjoy using these. I bought these. I bought some of the other models here. Actually, I bought the Momentum 4 and the older Bose. This was sent to me for review, and I will be reviewing the Gen 2. Focal Batiste, I've just liked because even though the ANC performance isn't good, the cups are absolutely massive, and I could just wear these for a really long period of time. So to me, that was another value add. I did do a roundup where I compared the Sony XM6 to some other Bluetooth headphones. So if you want to see that, I'll have a link in the description below for that as well. But they all have different pros and cons, and where Bose excels is where I actually use it the most, and that's an airplane, because the case is really small and the ANC performance is awesome on a plane. They fold up really tiny, and frankly, I still find the Bose QC Ultra Gen 2s to just be a little bit more comfortable. That 5mm of ear clearance is the difference of taking them off during a 5 or 6 hour flight versus leaving them on for an extended period of time. So you can easily wear this, but I feel like you'll just have a little bit more irritation compared to something like the Bose or the Focal Batiste. And that about wraps up the review. And I don't think it's perfect, but Sennheiser certainly made an incredible headphone here. The sound quality alone is enough for people to just say, yes, that's what I want. And that's a huge reason why we buy headphones. I think as far as a couple little gotchas, if they do some firmware updates to improve the USB mic performance or do something to help with handling multiple platform support when the microphone's being used on a USB connection, to me, that would be a huge win. Overall, the comfort improvements are more than welcome with what they did with the headband design. I think it's a little bit easier to wear than the Momentum 4. I do wish the pads were a little bit larger, and if they fix the USB thing, it would be a home run. The battery life has already been class leading, it still is, and the noise cancellation improvements are more than welcome, and to me, it's more than passable to be used on a plane. You're not going to hear this and be like, yeah, I wish it was a little bit better. It did do a good job there too. With that being said, I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe so I can see you at the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.